The Galactic Foundry was the most feared place in the known universe. It floated in the darkness of space, orbiting a dying red star that painted everything in shades of blood and rust. The station itself was massive, larger than most moons, built from metals that no living species could name. For 3,000 years, it had served one purpose: to test the warriors of every spacefaring race and decide which species deserved respect in the galaxy. The rules were simple. Any species wanting to join the Galactic Council had to send their champion to the Foundry. The champion would face trials that tested body, mind, and spirit. If they passed, their people earned a seat among the stars. If they failed, their species would wait another 100 years before trying again. Most failed. Many died. On this day, representatives from 40 different worlds had gathered in the Foundry's main hangar. They stood in groups, each species keeping distance from the others. The Kethray, beings made of living crystal that glowed with cold blue light, stood at the front. They had dominated the Foundry for centuries. Their champion, a tall figure named Veth, had not lost a single match in 40 years. The Morvathi clustered nearby, their forearms folded across their broad chests, their skin the color of dried blood. The Siloon floated in the shadows, their bodies thin and gray, their large black eyes watching everything. They could reach into minds and twist thoughts like wet cloth. The Grothka stood apart from everyone. They were massive creatures, their bodies covered in stone-like plates that could stop plasma fire. Most species considered them stupid beasts, useful only for manual labor. But today, one young Grothka named Tomas had come to prove them wrong. A sound echoed through the hangar. The human ship had arrived. Every eye, every sensor, every telepathic mind turned toward the docking bay. Humanity was new to space. They had discovered faster-than-light travel only 50 years ago. They had no empire, no great warriors, no legendary history. The galaxy had mostly ignored them. But now they had applied for council membership, and the Foundry would judge their worth. The ship that docked was small and old. Its hull was scratched and dented. Rust showed at the edges. Compared to the gleaming vessels of the other species, it looked like garbage. The ramp lowered with a hiss of steam. The aliens waited to see what kind of warrior humanity had sent. Perhaps a giant soldier, enhanced with machines and chemicals. Perhaps a team of their finest fighters. Perhaps a general with decades of combat experience. Instead, a single figure walked down the ramp. She was small, shorter than almost everyone in the hangar. Her hair was black and cut short, practical. She wore heavy boots that had seen too many miles, simple pants, and a military jacket that was clearly too big for her. The jacket had patches on the elbows and a name stitched over the heart: Park. Her skin was pale, her build thin. She could not have been older than 17 human years. But her eyes made several aliens step backward. They were dark brown, almost black, and they held something that the translator systems could not identify. The Siloon tried to read her mind and found it burning like a furnace. The Kethri analyzed her biological signs and found her heart rate completely calm. The Marvathi saw no fear in her posture, no hesitation in her step. She walked into the center of the hangar and stopped. Overseer Thalax descended from above. Thalax was ancient, older than most civilizations. Its body was made of living metal that flowed and shifted like water. It administered the Foundry's trials since before most species had discovered fire. Its voice echoed in every mind present. "You are the human champion?" Thalax asked. "I am Park Yuna," she said. Her voice was steady. "I represent Earth and all of humanity. You are alone. Yes. You are young. Yes. You are small, weak, unaugmented. You have no natural weapons, no armor, no telepathy, no special abilities. Your species lives less than 100 years. You cannot survive in vacuum. You cannot regenerate limbs. You cannot. I know what I cannot do, Una interrupted. The hangar went silent. No one interrupted Overseer Thalax. Are you going to tell me what the trials are, or should I figure them out myself? For a long moment, Thalax said nothing. Then something that might have been amusement rippled across its liquid metal face. The trials will begin in one standard cycle. You will be given quarters to rest and prepare. The trials test body, mind, and spirit. Most candidates do not survive all three. Do you understand that you may die here? I understand. Do you wish to proceed? I did not travel 40 light years to turn around. Veth, the Kethrite champion, stepped forward. His crystal body caught the red light of the dying star and scattered it into 1,000 fragments. Little human, he said, his voice like glass scraping stone, your species is young. There is no shame in waiting another century. You are not ready for this place. Una looked up at him. He was 3 times her height, made of material harder than diamond, and had killed more opponents than she had years of life. She smiled. Then you have nothing to worry about, she said. From the human embassy ship still docked in the hangar, Kang Dohan watched through the viewport. He was the medical officer assigned to this mission, a man of 30 who had spent his whole career preparing for this moment. His hands were shaking. When the transmission had first come announcing that humanity's council application was accepted, the entire planet had celebrated. When they learned that only one champion could be sent, billions had volunteered. The selection process had taken 2 years, and somehow, impossibly, they had chosen her. A 17-year-old girl with no military training, no genetic enhancements, no combat experience. The daughter of a man who had died on a colony ship 3 years ago, leaving her with nothing but his jacket and a burning need to prove something. Dohan opened the communication channel. Una, please, you can still come back. We can send someone else. Someone stronger. Someone. Dr. Kang. Her voice came back, calm and certain. My father believed that humanity belonged among the stars. He believed it so much that he died trying to help us get there. I am not going to waste his faith. Close the channel. I need to find where the first trial begins. The channel went dead. In the hangar, Una was already walking toward the Foundry's inner chambers. She did not look back at her ship. She did not look at the aliens who watched her with curiosity, contempt, or something like pity. She walked forward, into the darkness, into the trials that had broken 1,000 species. And her eyes never stopped burning. The first trial began without warning. Una had been walking through a corridor when the floor suddenly dropped away beneath her feet. She fell into darkness, her stomach rising into her throat. And then gravity seized her like a giant hand and slammed her into the ground. The gravity wells she had read about them during the journey to the Foundry. Chambers that shifted gravity without pattern or mercy. One moment you floated weightless. The next moment you weighed 10 times your normal weight. Then 50 times. Then 0 again. The shifts were random and cruel, designed to break bones and burst organs. Una's first experience was 30 times Earth gravity. Her body pressed into the metal floor like she was made of wet sand. Her ribs creaked. Her lungs could not expand. Blood pooled in her legs, and her vision went gray at the edges. Then, just as suddenly, the gravity vanished. She floated upward, gasping, blood rushing to her head. She had 3 seconds of relief before gravity returned, sideways this time, throwing her against the wall hard enough to crack something in her shoulder. For 6 hours. This continued. The other candidates were going through the same trial in different chambers. The Marvathi representative, a warrior named Coral, with 4 arms and decades of combat experience, had 3 of his limbs broken in the first hour. His screams echoed through the station's corridors before medical teams extracted him. The Silum candidate, a telepath named Ilix, tried to predict the gravity shifts by reading the minds of the Foundry's operators. But the Foundry was run by machines that had no minds to read. Ilix collapsed after 2 hours, blood streaming from her nose and ears. Una survived, not through strength. Humans were weak compared to most species, not through technology. She had no implants or enhancements. She survived through something else entirely. She learned dot in the first hour. She memorized the sounds the chamber made before each gravity shift. A faint humming meant sideways. A clicking meant down. A whisper of air meant 0 gravity was coming. The patterns were not perfect, but they were enough. She began positioning her body before each shift, reducing the damage, finding moments to breathe and rest. When she finally crawled out of the gravity wells, her left arm hung useless at her side, her ribs were cracked, and her face was swollen with bruises. But she was alive, and she was walking. Overseer Veth watched from an observation deck. His crystal body showed no expression, but inside his silicon mind, something stirred. Curiosity, perhaps, or the first small seed of concern. The second trial was the Burning Plains, a vast chamber, 1/2 kilometer long, with a floor made of contained plasma. The containment shields flickered and failed in random patterns, creating paths that changed every few seconds. Cross the chamber or burn. Most species had some resistance to heat. The Kethrae were made of crystal that could withstand stellar temperatures. The Grothga had stone skin that could endure lava. The Morvathi could regenerate burned flesh within hours. Humans had none of these advantages. Human skin burned at temperatures that most species considered mild. Human flesh cooked like meat on a fire. Una stood at the entrance of the chamber, feeling the heat wash over her face like opening an oven door. Her skin immediately began to redden. Sweat poured down her body, evaporating almost as fast as it formed. She watched the plasma. She watched the shields. She counted dot, then she ran dot, not in a straight line. She moved in a pattern that seemed random, but was actually precise, based on the rhythm she had detected in the shield failures. Left 3 steps, wait. Right 2 steps, jump. Forward 5 steps, drop flat. The plasma roared around her. Her boots began to melt. Her jacket caught fire, and she tore it off, leaving her in a thin undershirt that offered no protection. Halfway across, she made a mistake. A shield failed where it should not have failed. Plasma licked up her left leg, and she screamed for the first time since arriving at the Foundry. The smell of her own burning flesh filled her nostrils. She kept running. She crossed the chamber in 4 minutes and 18 seconds. Her leg was burned from ankle to knee. The skin blackened and cracked. She collapsed on the cool metal on the other side and pressed her face against the floor. Breathing in shuddering gasps, medical drones approached to treat her wounds. She waved them away. "Just bandage it," she said through gritted teeth. "I can still walk." The third trial was the cold sleep and endurance test in temperatures that no human had ever experienced. The chamber dropped to nearly absolute 0, cold enough to freeze light itself, cold enough to slow atoms to a stop. Candidates were placed inside and left until they surrendered or died. Most species had evolved on worlds with harsh winters. They had biological systems to slow their metabolisms, to redirect blood flow, to survive cold that would kill a human in seconds. Humans came from a temperate world. They had no such adaptations. Una entered the chamber wearing only the thin medical gown the drones had given her. The cold hit her immediately, sharp as knives, cutting through her skin to her bones. Her breath turned to ice before it left her lips. Frost formed on her eyelashes, her hair, her bandages. 5 minutes. Her fingers turned white, then blue. 10 minutes. She could no longer feel her feet. Her heart rate dropped dangerously low. 20 minutes. Her fingers turned black. Frostbite had set in. 30 minutes. The medical monitors began screaming warnings. Kang Do-hyun, watching from the embassy ship, was on his feet, shouting into the communication channel, begging her to surrender. She did not respond. She could not respond. Her lips were frozen shut. 40-5 minutes. The cold had reached her core. Her heart was beating once every 10 seconds. Her brain activity had slowed to near 0. And then something remarkable happened. Her body, pushed beyond all limits, adapted. It was not magic. It was not technology. It was simply what human bodies did when faced with impossible circumstances. Her metabolism shifted into a mode that no scientist on Earth had ever documented. A desperate survival state that slowed her cells to match the cold instead of fighting it. Her heart did not warm her blood. Instead, it pumped just enough to keep her brain alive while letting the rest of her body fall into something like hibernation. After 1 hour, the chamber opened. Yuna fell forward onto the warm floor. Her skin was gray. Her fingers were black. Her body temperature was 30 degrees below normal. But she was alive. The medical drones rushed in. They pumped warm fluids into her veins, wrapped her in heating blankets, treated the frostbite that had claimed 3 of her fingers. She would need prosthetics. She would carry scars for the rest of her life. But she had passed the trials of body. In the observation deck, Overseer Thalax made a note in the Foundry's ancient records. The human candidate has completed the physical trials in 17 hours and 43 minutes. This is not a record. It is not close to a record. But she is the first human to complete them at all. And she did so through a method we have not previously observed. She does not overpower the trials. She does not resist them. She learns them and adapts to them. This requires further observation. Veth, standing beside the overseer, said nothing. But his crystal eyes followed the medical drones as they carried Yuna's broken body toward the recovery chambers. She was weak. She was damaged. She should have been nothing. But for the first time in 40 years, Veth felt something he had forgotten existed: uncertainty. Yuna was given 12 hours to recover before the mental trials began. She spent 2 of those hours unconscious while doctors regrew skin on her burned leg and attached temporary prosthetics to replace her missing fingers. She spent the remaining 10 hours sitting in her small room, staring at the wall, preparing herself for what was coming. The trials of mind were considered worse than the physical tests. Bodies could be repaired. Minds once broken, rarely healed. The first mental trial was the memory labyrinth. Yuna was placed in a chamber that looked empty at first. White walls, white floor, white ceiling. No furniture, no markings, just silence and light. Then the walls began to move. The labyrinth formed around her, corridors spreading in every direction. But these were not ordinary walls. They were made of memories. Her memories. Every failure, every shame, every moment of her life that she wished she could forget was now solid stone blocking her path. She turned a corner and found herself facing her first day of school. She was 5 years old again, standing in a classroom full of children who laughed at her second-hand clothes. The memory was so real she could smell the chalk dust, hear the cruel giggles, feel the hot shame burning in her chest. The only way forward was through. She walked into the memory. It wrapped around her like cold water. She lived it again, every painful second, while her adult mind watched from inside. Then she was out the other side, breathing hard, tears on her cheeks. The next corridor showed her mother leaving. Yuna was 9. Her mother had packed one bag and walked out the door without looking back. In the memory, young Yuna ran after her, screaming, begging her to stay. Her mother did not turn around. The door closed. The sound of it echoed through the labyrinth like a gunshot. Yuna walked through this memory too. The labyrinth grew darker. The memories grew worse. Her first fight, where she hurt someone badly and felt sick for weeks. Her failure in school, when she gave up trying because nothing seemed to matter. Her loneliness year after year, pushing people away because she was afraid they would leave like her mother had. And then she reached the center of the labyrinth. Her father. The memory that lived in her heart like a knife that never stopped cutting. She saw him as he had been 3 years ago, standing at the door of their small apartment, wearing his new colony ship uniform. He was proud. He was excited. He was leaving Earth to help build humanity's first permanent settlement on another world. It was his dream, and he had worked his entire life for this moment. She was supposed to go with him. They had planned it for years. Father and daughter, exploring the stars together. But that morning, she had overslept. A simple thing. A stupid thing. Her alarm had not gone off, and she had slept through the departure window. Her father had waited as long as he could, but the ship could not be delayed. He had kissed her forehead while she was still half asleep, whispered, "I'll see you on the next ship," and left. 3 weeks later, the colony ship suffered a catastrophic engine failure. There were no survivors. In the memory labyrinth, Yuna stood before this scene and watched it play out again. She saw her father's face as he said goodbye. She saw herself, tangled in blankets, too tired to open her eyes properly. She heard his last words to her. The labyrinth wanted her to break. It wanted her to collapse under the weight of her guilt, her grief, her endless replaying of that morning. What if she had set 2 alarms? What if she had stayed awake the night before? What if she had just opened her eyes? Instead, Yuna walked forward. Not around the memory. Not away from it. Through it. She let it wash over her, every drop of pain, every gram of guilt. She carried it with her instead of trying to escape it. And as she walked, she spoke aloud, her voice echoing in the labyrinth. "I was supposed to die with you," she said. "But I didn't. I'm alive, and I will not waste that. I will prove that you were right about us. About humanity. About the stars." The labyrinth dissolved around her. She had passed. The second mental trial was the logic maze. This was a test designed by the Kethri, a species of pure logic and cold reason. Candidates were placed in a series of puzzles that had to be solved while machines injected doubt directly into their neurons. Every answer you gave, a voice in your head told you that you were wrong. Every decision you made, the machines made you uncertain. Most species tried to ignore the doubt and push through with logic alone. The Kethri, with their crystal minds and mathematical thinking, excelled at this. They simply calculated the correct answer and ignored the emotional noise. Humans could not do this. Human minds were not built for pure logic. They were built for something messier, something older, something the Kethri considered primitive. Intuition. Yuna faced the first puzzle. A complex arrangement of symbols that had to be decoded before a door would open. The doubt machines kicked in immediately, flooding her mind with uncertainty. "You're guessing," they whispered. "You don't understand this. You're too stupid. You're going to fail." She ignored the content of the doubt and instead listened to its pattern. When she looked at certain symbols, the doubt increased. When she looked at others, it decreased. The machines were giving her information without meaning to. They were telling her where the important parts of the puzzle were. She solved it in 3 minutes. The Foundry's observers made notes. Subject is using emotional response as a problem-solving tool. This is not standard human behavior. Further observation required. But it was standard human behavior. Humans have been using gut feelings to solve problems for millions of years. They had hunted predators and gathered food and navigated dangerous terrain, all by trusting feelings they could not explain. The Kethrahi had logic. Humans had something older. The third mental trial was the fear engine. This was the worst of the mental tests. Candidates were placed in a machine that read their deepest fears and made them real. Not memories this time, but terrors. The things that woke you in the night. The shapes in the darkness that had no names. For most species, the fears were personal. Death, pain, failure, shame. For Yuna, the fear engine showed her something larger. She stood on Earth, but Earth was burning. The sky was full of alien ships, and the cities below were nothing but ash and rubble. Billions of people were dead. Humanity was ending, not with a war or a plague, but simply being forgotten. The galaxy had decided that humans were not worth remembering, and so they were being erased. In the vision, Yuna walked through the ruins of her home city. She saw her apartment building, collapsed into rubble. She saw her school, nothing but a crater. She saw the spaceport where her father had left, now just twisted metal and smoke. And she saw the future. A future where no one remembered that humans had ever existed. Where the word Earth meant nothing. Where all of human art and music and love and hope had vanished like morning mist. The fear engine expected her to scream, to beg, to surrender. Instead, she sat down in the ashes of her world and spoke. "If this is the future," she said, "then I will change it. And if I cannot change it, then I will be the last human anyone ever meets. I will make them remember us. I will make them remember that we were here, that we loved, that we tried. I will burn so bright that even after we are gone, they will see our light." She looked up at the alien ships in the burning sky. "I will be the fire they cannot forget." The fear engine shut down. The vision dissolved. The trial was over. In the observation deck, Ilix the Cylone researcher had been monitoring Yuna's mental patterns throughout the trials. Now she sat in stunned silence, reviewing the data again and again. "Overseer," she finally said, "I have observed many species face the fear engine. All of them try to suppress their terror. They fight it, deny it, hide from it. The human did not do this. What did she do?" Thalax asked. Ilix turned to face the ancient overseer, her large black eyes reflecting the data streams around her. "She used it," Ilix said. "She took her fear and transformed it into something else. Into purpose. Into fuel. I do not know what to call this ability, but I believe it may be the most dangerous thing I have ever seen." In her recovery chamber, Yuna slept. Her body was healing. Her mind was quiet. But even in sleep, something behind her eyes continued to burn. Of all the candidates who had entered the Foundry, only 2 remained. Park Yuna, the human girl who had survived everything the station had thrown at her, and Tomas, the young Grothka whose stone body and stubborn heart had carried him through trials that should have broken him. They had never met. They had seen each other only from a distance. 2 unlikely survivors in a place designed to destroy anyone who was not already powerful. Now they stood at opposite ends of a large circular chamber, waiting for the final trial before the championship challenge. The trial of spirit. Overseer Thalax's voice filled the chamber. This trial has no rules that are written. It tests something that cannot be measured by machines or observed by scientists. Only one of you may advance to face the champion. The door will open when one of you can no longer continue. The meaning was clear. Fight until someone surrenders or dies. Tomas understood this immediately. His species had no concept of mercy. The Grothka were considered simple by the rest of the galaxy, barely more than animals, useful only for labor and war. They had been slaves for centuries before winning their freedom through blood and violence. When a Grothka faced an enemy, there were only 2 outcomes: victory or death. He began to move forward, his massive stone-covered body making the floor shake with each step. His 4 eyes, small and black against his gray face, focused on Yuna with predator intensity. He did not hate her. He did not enjoy what he was about to do. But his people needed him to win. If he defeated the human and then the champion, the Grothka would finally have the respect they deserved. Yuna watched him approach. She was half his size, weighed a fraction of what he weighed, and had none of his natural armor or strength. In a straight fight, he would crush her in seconds. Her body was still recovering from the previous trials. Her new prosthetic fingers were not yet fully integrated. Her burned leg ached with every movement. She sat down. Thomas stopped. His heavy brow furrowed in confusion. In all his life, he had never seen an opponent simply sit down in the middle of a fight. "What are you doing?" he asked. His voice was deep and rough, like boulders grinding together. "I'm not going to fight you," Yuna said. "Then you will die." "Maybe, but I'm still not going to fight you." Tomas did not know what to do. The Foundry's trials always had clear solutions. Physical challenges were overcome with strength. Mental challenges were overcome with will. But this? An opponent who refused to be an opponent. "This is foolish," he said. "I do not want to kill you, human. But I will if I must. My people are counting on me." "Then sit with me for a while first," Yuna said. She patted the floor beside her. "If you're going to kill me, at least talk to me first." "I've never met a Grothka before." Thomas stood still for a long moment. Then, slowly, he walked over and sat down across from her. The floor groaned under his weight. "You are strange," he said. "I know. Tell me about your people." At first, Tomas did not want to talk. But Yuna asked questions, simple questions, and he found himself answering. He told her about Grothka Prime, his homeworld, a planet of mountains and deep caves where his people had lived for thousands of years. He told her about the slavers who had come from the stars, who had captured his ancestors and forced them to work in mines and factories. He told her about the rebellion, generations later, when the Grothka had finally fought back and won their freedom. "But freedom is not enough," he said. His voice was quieter now, less like grinding stone. "The galaxy still sees us as beasts. We are not invited to councils. We are not respected. I came here to change that. To show them that Grothka are more than muscle and stone." Yuna nodded. "I understand. My people are new to space. Most of the galaxy thinks we're primitive, that we don't belong here. That's why I came too." "Your father," Thomas said. "I heard the other observers talking. He died on a colony ship." "Yes, you carry his jacket." Yuna looked down. She was not wearing the jacket now. It had burned in the burning plains. But she still felt its weight on her shoulders, as if it had become part of her skin. "He believed we belonged among the stars," she said. "I'm trying to prove he was right." They sat in silence for a while. The Foundry's observers watched, confused and uncertain. This was not how the trial of spirit was supposed to go. After an hour, Yuna reached into her pocket and pulled out 3 small stones. She had picked them up in one of the corridors, thinking they were interesting. Now she placed them on the floor between herself and Tomas. "My father taught me a game when I was young," she said. "It's simple. You take turns moving stones, trying to make patterns. Want to learn?" Tomas stared at the stones. Games were not common among the Grothka. They were seen as frivolous, a waste of time that could be spent training or working. But something about the simple stones on the simple floor made him curious. "Show me," he said. Yuna taught him the rules. They were not complicated. The game was about patterns, about seeing connections that were not obvious. It was not about strength or speed or cunning. It was about patience and creativity. They played for 3 hours. At first, Thomas lost every game. His mind was not built for abstract patterns. But slowly he began to understand. He began to see the beauty in the game, the way each move could create something unexpected. And then, for the first time in recorded history, a Grothka laughed. The sound was strange. Like stones tumbling down a mountain, like thunder rolling across a canyon. It was not pretty, but it was genuine. "I see it now," Tomas said, pointing at the pattern Yuna had made. "You tricked me. You made me think you were building one thing, but you were building something else." "That's how humans think," Yuna said, smiling. "We build one thing while dreaming about another." They played for 2 more hours. The observers had stopped trying to understand what was happening. Even Overseer Thalax was silent. Finally, as the 6th hour ended, something happened that the Foundry had never seen before. The door opened for both of them. Thomas stood first, his massive body rising like a mountain emerging from the sea. He looked at the door, then at Yuna, then at the door again. "I do not understand," he said. Yuna stood beside him, small and bruised, and somehow still smiling. "I think the trial was never about fighting. It was about finding another way. But only one of us can face the champion." That's what they said. But maybe they were wrong. Maybe the Foundry never considered that 2 people might choose not to fight at all. In the observation deck, Overseer Thalax turned to the Foundry's central computer, a machine older than most civilizations. "Explain," Thalax commanded. The computer's response came after a long pause. "The trial of spirit has no written rules. Its purpose is to reveal the true nature of the candidates. For 3,000 years, all candidates have revealed the same nature, the willingness to destroy others for personal advancement. The human has revealed a different nature. She has introduced a variable we have not previously encountered." "What variable?" "Connection," the computer said. The human created connection where the trial expected destruction. The Grothka responded to this connection. Together, they have solved the trial in a way that was theoretically possible, but never actually achieved. The trial's parameters require me to advance anyone who demonstrates superior spirit. Both candidates have done so." Thalax was silent for a long time. Finally, the ancient overseer spoke. "Update the records. 2 candidates will face the champion." As Yuna and Thomas walked through the open door together, the Foundry's computer made a note in its oldest archives. Human variable introduced unprecedented solution. Previous parameters assumed all sentient beings prioritize individual survival over connection. This assumption has been proven incorrect. Updating parameters for future trials. Behind them, the door closed. Ahead of them, the championship arena waited. The championship arena was the heart of the Foundry, a vast circular space that could hold 10,000 spectators. Today, it was full. Representatives from every spacefaring species had gathered to watch the final challenge. Screens throughout the station and across 1,000 worlds broadcast every moment. This was the event that determined who had the right to stand among the galaxy's ruling powers. On one side of the arena stood Veth, the Kethrai champion. He had held this title for 40 years. His crystal body gleamed like polished diamond, refracting the arena's lights into rainbows of cold fire. He was 3 meters tall, his form perfect, his mind faster than any computer. In 4 decades, no one had even come close to defeating him. On the other side stood Park Yuna. She wore no armor. She carried no weapons. Her body was covered in healing wounds and fresh scars. 3 of her fingers were prosthetic metal. Her leg was wrapped in medical bandages. She had not slept properly in 4 days. She weighed less than most of the weapons in the arena's historical displays. Beside her stood Tomas, the young Grothka, his stone body solid and steady. He had asked to fight alongside her, but the rules were clear. The championship was a single combat. He could only watch. Overseer Thalax's voice echoed through the arena. The rules of the championship are simple. Combat continues until one fighter cannot continue. All methods are permitted. There are no disqualifications. There is no surrender. In the stands, Kang Doan sat with his head in his hands. The embassy ship's entire crew was watching through screens, but he could not look away even though every second filled him with terror. He had begged Yuna to withdraw. He had offered to falsify medical records, saying she was unfit to fight. She had refused every option. "She's going to die," he whispered. "She's going to die, and there's nothing I can do." Beside him, Ilix the Saloon researcher shook her head slowly. "Perhaps," she said, "but I do not think so. I have watched this human more closely than anyone. She has survived everything the Foundry has created. She has done so not through strength but through something else. Something I still do not fully understand." "What?" Ilix's large black eyes reflected the arena lights. "She does not fight like others fight. She does not try to win. She tries to show something." The battle began. Veth moved first. He was fast, faster than anything made of crystal had a right to be. His arm extended into a blade of pure light and slashed toward Yuna's neck. It was a killing blow, perfect and precise. Yuna was not there. She had moved before he did. Reading his body language, the way she had read the gravity shifts and the plasma patterns and the memory labyrinth. Her body was slow and weak, but her mind was faster than it had any right to be. She rolled under his strike and drove her knee into a joint in his leg. Where two crystals met the arena went silent. Veth stumbled. Not much, just a slight hesitation in his perfect movement. But everyone had seen it. The human had found a weakness that the Kethrai had not known existed. Veth recovered and attacked again. This time, both arms became blades. He spun like a crystal tornado, slashing from every direction. Yuna blocked what she could with her forearms, letting the blades cut her rather than kill her. Blood sprayed across the arena floor. She refused to fall. For 5 minutes, they fought. Veth was faster, stronger, and nearly indestructible. He shattered Yuna's prosthetic fingers with a single blow. He cracked her already broken ribs. He opened wounds that would have killed most creatures. But every time she fell, she stood up again. And every time she stood, she learned something new about how he moved. "Why do you continue?" Veth finally asked. His crystal voice carried across the silent arena. "You cannot win. Your body is failing. You have nothing left." Yuna spat blood onto the arena floor and smiled. "I'm not trying to win. Then what are you trying to do?" She looked past him, at the thousands of aliens watching, at the screens broadcasting to 1 trillion viewers across the galaxy. "I'm trying to show them what humans are." She attacked Dodd. It was not a good attack. It was not a smart attack. It was the attack of someone with nothing left, except a fire burning in her heart. She threw herself at Veth with everything she had, fists and elbows and knees and teeth. He blocked most of it easily. But she did not stop. She could not stop. 20 minutes into the fight, Yuna was barely standing. Both eyes were swollen. Her left arm hung useless. Blood poured from a dozen wounds. By every measure that mattered, she had already lost. But Veth had stopped attacking. He stood in the center of the arena, watching her with his crystal eyes. Something had changed in his posture. The cold certainty that had defined him for 40 years was gone. In its place was something that looked almost like confusion. "You should be dead," he said. "Your body has failed you. Your blood pressure is critical. Your heart is beating irregularly. You have nothing left." Yuna stood up again. Her legs shook. Her vision was blurring. But she stood. "Humans have a saying," she said. her voice barely a whisper that the arena's systems had to amplify. It's not about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. She raised her fists. Veth did not move. I have studied your species, he said. You are weak, short-lived, fragile. You have no natural advantages. By every logical measure, you should not be standing here. Logic doesn't know everything. I am beginning to understand that. They faced each other in silence. The arena held its breath. 10,000 spectators and 1 trillion viewers waited to see what would happen. Yuna charged, thought it was her last attack. There was nothing left after this. Her body was running on fumes and fury and something else that had no name. She crossed the distance between them in 3 steps and threw everything she had into a single punch aimed at the crack she had found in his leg. Veth could have blocked it. He could have killed her easily. His blades could have cut her in half before her fist ever reached him. Instead, he let her hit him. The crack in his leg widened. He fell to one knee. The arena erupted in shocked gasps and cries. Yuna stood over him, swaying, barely conscious. Her fist was bleeding from hitting crystal. But she did not raise it again. Instead, she offered him her hand. We don't have to be what they expect, she said. Your people. My people. All of us. We don't have to fight because they tell us to fight. We don't have to hate because they expect us to hate. Veth looked at her hand. In 40 years, no opponent had ever offered him anything except violence. What do you offer instead? He asked. A future. Together. Not as enemies fighting for scraps, but as partners building something new. The arena was chaos. Some spectators shouted for Yuna's disqualification. Others demanded Veth finish the fight. But among the noise, other voices were rising. Tomas the Grothka was on his feet, chanting Yuna's name. Ilix the Siloon had joined him. Other species, races who had only ever known competition and dominance, were beginning to understand what they were seeing. A human girl was offering a hand to the galaxy. Not in weakness, but in strength. Not because she had to, but because she chose to. Veth reached up and took her hand. The arena fell silent. Overseer Thalax descended from above, its liquid metal body flowing into the center of the arena. For a long moment, the ancient being said nothing. Then, finally, it spoke. The human has not merely passed the Foundry's trials. She has revealed their inadequacy. For 3,000 years, we have tested strength, intelligence, and will to dominate. We have never tested the ability to connect, to sacrifice, to offer hope instead of violence. This is a failure in our systems. Thalax turned to face the stands, its voice carrying to every corner of the station and every screen across the galaxy. Humanity is granted full membership in the Galactic Council, not as warriors, not as conquerors, but as something we do not yet have a word for. The arena erupted, but Yuna did not hear it. She had finally collapsed, her body surrendering to exhaustion now that the fire had accomplished what it needed to. Tomas caught her before she hit the ground, his stone arms gentle as a cradle. Hours later, Yuna woke in the medical bay. Kang Doan was sitting beside her bed, his eyes red from crying, his hands still shaking. You did it, he said. You actually did it. Yuna smiled weakly. We did it. Humanity did it. What do we do now? She looked out the viewport at the stars, the same stars her father had dreamed of reaching. Now we show them who we really are, she said. Now we build something worth building. Across the galaxy, the story spread. The human girl who walked into the Foundry with nothing but fire in her eyes. The girl who refused to fight when fighting was expected. The girl who offered her hand instead of her fist thought in the years that followed. The Foundry's trials were restructured. The Trial of Spirit was renamed the Park Protocol. Species that had only known conflict began to consider other options. Alliances formed that would have been impossible before, and on 1,000 worlds. Young beings of every species grew up hearing the story of the human girl who carried something more dangerous than weapons. More powerful than fleets. She carried hope. And hope, as the galaxy learned, was a fire that could never be extinguished.